to Alia Mashtas and Martin Despang's Urban Transcendence show. This is the first part of a three-piece series of POE, post-occupancy evaluation of Keikigarten's 3 kindergarten projects. Why is POE important? Because a building over its lifetime costs 8 times as much as the initial cost of erection. So this is the maintenance and basically energy that buildings consume. So it's important that we look at buildings, how they perform over their lifespan. So we're going to do this with 3 projects here, 3 pieces of typology. Typology meaning our interpretation how a human event and activity informs architecture. Way back in the days, the cultures have been living close together in time and space, whereas in modernism there was a tendency of decentralizing human activity. That led to different typologies. So we work somewhere else than we live, we borrow food somewhere else than we live. We bring our children into a kindergarten, which is what we're going to talk about today. So also this 3-part piece will give you a good insight how, although pretty much similar program, different conditions of space and time will inform architecture differently. So here the program has been basically pretty much the same, but these 3 kindergartens have been built in different times. This is the first one built in 1996. The second one next was built in 2007, and the third one in 2010. So the story behind this Keikigarten here, we show you when we get a little closer to the building. So the building is highly informed by an investigation in integration, in social integration. This is a neighborhood here with a very high migrational component here, lots of cultural diversity around. So the client basically charged us with making a building that would last. And so he was afraid that there would be vandalization. So he asked us to put a fence at the edge of the property so the building would be protected. After research, we proposed something significantly different, not to say the opposite. We recommended to the client to dedicate a piece of the width of 15 feet, 5 meters to the public, and push the building back and make the building seem like a natural component in the urban landscape, so more a landscape wall in terms of architecture, more a sculptural element than the facade. So this space helps the transition from the public of the street over the semi-public of this transitional area to the more private area to the kindergarten. In order to do so, we also upfront analyzed terminology. So we thought what the term kindergarten means, and it's a term universally adopted by American English and German language, which means garten. Garten means garden. So with that, we as a term identify that maybe the most important space for the keiki, for the children, is not a building, but is in fact a garden, a landscape element. So code requires kindergartens to basically face south because of daylight efficiency, which makes a lot of sense. South would have been, you can see from where the sun is coming here, it's late morning, so the building would have had to face the street. The street, every once in a while, we're interrupted by a car. This is the main access to the neighborhood, and here it comes, great timing, great choreography, a car. So we thought it would be not a good idea to have the children's main room, the outdoor room, the garden, being exposed to the street. So we violated code intentionally, talked to the authorities, and turned the building around and make the building that described threshold between the public and the private. The materialization of the building, because the building, the client wanted the building to be sort of anti-vandalized, protected. We violated code again in the detail of the building. There's a domination of brick here, so the client asked us to test brick. The building itself has a steel structure. That's why this show is subtitled The Steely Keikigarten. Steel structure because the client wanted the building to be potentially repurposed, as Ali likes to say the term. When there wouldn't be enough children anymore, it's unclear how much love Germans make, and so how many children do we have in the future. So because of this unpredictability, the building was conceptualized as a steel skeleton. In order to fenestrate, to clad a steel skeleton, we did some research, found out that Mies van der Rohe has done that with the House of Krefeld, and steel and brick don't necessarily work together always that well. We decided here to make a mortarless stacked bond brick, so piling up bricks on top of each other and next to each other that have literally and figuratively no bond. And the mortar joint is reduced, which we borrowed from our architectural ancestors, the architecture of the Hanover School of Architecture. That strategy has proven to have worked because we're nearing 20 years after this building has been finished, and you can literally see close to no vandalization in the building facade. And what has worked even better is that transition of the parents when they bring their children, when they pick up their parents. The space that's basically dedicated to the public is a great space to approach the building. So we're going to move on and check out how one enters the building. So this facade is articulated in a rather opaque way because of, again, the function of protecting the main space, the playrooms, the living rooms, and the garden from the street. So the perforations in there are placed very strategically, and they are in fact a representation of the activity behind. So with little windows for storage rooms, we have a large horizontal window for the kitchen. We have two windows for the little toddlers, one for the adults and one for the children at the very bottom. And the largest opening is the opening that you can see over there. That's the entrance. So it's just another larger space. When the kindergarten is not functioning, when it's closed, that steel gate is shut, it's flush with a wall, and clearly signalizes that we're closed. The first one in the morning, coming with a key, opens that steel gate and rotates it around, so it basically then stops in that closing position here. And it's a little like that kiosk that has that little flag with the ice cream logo on there. When they put that on their kiosk, it means we're open, you're welcome, come. So that's what that element sort of functions as, and is a signal/signature. So we're going to progress and go into the courtyard. So, Frau Heimann, vielen Dank, dass Sie sich Zeit nehmen für uns heute, ein bisschen Ihr Haus zeigen. Und ich freue mich darüber, dass wir uns wiedersehen. Wir haben gerade mal überlegt, bestimmt 10 Jahre, das Haus ist bald 20 Jahre alt.
17, genau.
Yeah, so I'm going to translate that quickly. So, thanks for having us here. It's my pleasure, especially since it's been 10 years we just figured we saw each other the last time. Shame on me, and because the building is almost 20 years young or old that we get to that topic. So thanks for spending your time today with us. And I already walked the audience around the building, so maybe you can pick up from here and explain what the space here is about and for.
Also das ist der Hof der eigentlich man könnte sagen, ein Willkommenshof für die Familien sind, die ihre Kinder hier herbringen. Wir haben hier eben das Baugebiet und auch eine verkehrsreiche Straße, sodass das mit diesem Hof eigentlich wir können das in der Nacht sehr gut sichern. Einbruchssicherung ist auch wichtig geworden mit diesem Tor. Und wir haben das halt gerne so, dass wir hier auch ein bisschen begrünen wollten. Ist noch nicht so, wie es sein sollte, aber so ein bisschen auf dem Weg. Wir wollen das hier auch Kräuter und Pflanzen, die dann auch noch ein bisschen gestalterisch verschönern.
So you very charmingly call this the welcoming courtyard, which resonates well because that was the intention where you say, as we just saw, parents pick up their children and bring them so that they can gather here and communicate. So you say you're working on landscaping, that's a process as always, and this gate does its job well because it really brings the security, which is before we talked that there is an increasing violence and vandalization, unfortunately, in facilities like that. So you're kind of happy you can close it off and then open it in the morning and welcome people in. So from here, I think we're going to move on inside. So as this show is live and these are the kindergartens, and now we have the authentic background noise, which proves it's a kindergarten. So, ja, wenn Sie kurz erklären, die Situation hier.
Und wir nutzen diese Flur auch als Spielflur. Also die Kinder können mit dem Flur hier verschiedene Spielecken besuchen, könnte ich sagen, wo sie einfach dann nochmal auswählen können, was sie hier für Spiele machen können. Und ja, haben wir auch ein Klavier.
Here comes the food, that's great. We should get to that topic. That was perfect. Vielen Dank, das war super. Nee, perfekt, wir sagen es super. So maybe you explain that since you was walking by. Yeah.
Ja, also das ist uns wichtig, dass die Kinder nicht nur in den Gruppen spielen müssen, sondern dass sie die Möglichkeit haben, auch einfach die Orte zu sehen. Das tun wir auf dem Tour, weil es groß genug ist und außerdem finde ich das sehr, sehr schön in der engen Wohngebieten, dass Kinder hier eine Fläche von Flur haben. Wo findet man die? Sonst früher nur auf der Straße, aber hier bei uns einmal durch, das genießen die Kinder auch. Und das finden wir schön, dass wir so einen langen Flur haben, der auch die Möglichkeit bietet, unterschiedliche Aktionen anzubieten.
It's also great to hear POE-wise because we themed this here the street, and you say it works as a street because you say it's a rather dense neighborhood where children don't have the ability and the chance to express themselves physically and also spiritually. So you say it's great to have that pretty spacious circumstance here that they can use this not just as circulation but also for activity. So it's like what children used to do on the streets, they play, so they do that here. So you're probably going to turn the camera around and show the audience the street. So from here on, we're going to leave Ms. Heinemann for a while and be on our own. This is because the kindergartens with children around have some legal and photographing and some privacy around sensitivities that we're going to respect. So I'm going to tour you around just very briefly to sort of give you the impressions that relate to what Ms. Heinemann is talking about when we meet her again later on in her office. It's talking about context of time. When designing this building here exactly 17 years ago, I was a young father myself with my one son aged kindergarten and the other one just born. At that time, I was working with and for my father, Martin Despang, for his architectural firm, my apprentice years, and later on we were joining as principals in Despang Architect. As I was a young architect, this was one of my first projects here. This is the space here that Ms. Heinemann talks about previously that connects the entrance, the courtyard, to the backyard, to the garden. And so this is the multifunctional space. It's a large room that, as you can see from the equipment, is heavily used for physical activities, for working out, for gymnastics. In fact, that little boy we met this morning who made us a nice compliment, this is his favorite gym in the world, so you can really get crazy in this space here. And the wall you see in the back, it's a harmonica wall with these glass slits that Ms. Heinemann is nicely critical about later on, that you can open and close, so make this an own entity, and also open it up and make it part of the larger entrance foyer area. So from here on, we're going to move into what we call the street. So we're now in what we call the street. And the street is a very important aspect in all the three kindergartens we designed, because we identified it as the only space that's not prescribed exactly square footage-wise in the program, in the very prescribed public programs of these building types. So that's the one we used to make the hallway just that little bit wider, that besides this being circulation, also allows occupation. So the kids play here in the street, and that's something that Ms. Heinemann explains later they can't do to the degree they used to in the public streets, so we kind of incorporate that into the safer environment of the building here. That's why the floor is black, as street pavements are black. And as streets are open to the sky, this street here is also open to the sky. Because it has to be weather protected, there's glass running all the way along this hallway here, which was a significant cost factor. So we had to negotiate with the, by the way, wonderful client, Mr. Zedler, who was a very experienced architect himself, was the project architect on the client side, and we owe to him to a large degree that the building was able to become what it is. So we negotiated with him that the glass would be able to be built by having these originally wood louvers, recently replaced by aluminum louvers, been put and installed over the glass skylights for two reasons. One being the summer overheating protection from the high noon sun in the summertime. Now the sun has turned around and comes from the west, and as we talked about, and we talk about with Ms. Savitsa, this building is a negotiation between orientation and its thermal performance. So the other reason for the wood louvers originally was that the client says, I don't want to take the phone calls that come from the people in the kindergarten saying, clean my glass roof every week because it gets dirty. So through the little trick of multi-dutiness of the wood louvers, you don't look straight into the sky, so you don't look straight into the dirt. So that was an aspect of negotiation with the client that was successfully solved. So now from here we leave the street and we go into the side streets, which are the playrooms, the living rooms of the children. So we're now in what we, through the trilogy of the three kindergartens we're going to show you, we keep calling the living rooms, because these are the rooms where the children mainly reside during a majority of the day. So this is where they live. This kindergarten has been organized sequentially that the youngest one, age 1.5, the toddlers, going to be at the very beginning of the street where they have their own entity, which gives them more security, more calmness, they're more quiet there. And the more you progress along the street, the older the children get, and it actually concludes with a youth facility for older ones, high school, pre-high school age. So this building here, trying to secure the main space due to terminology, kindergarten is the garden. So you can see the garden in the back. The idea here is to make the enclosed space, which is mainly necessary for the long winter month here, and the summer space being one space, so to blur the space from inside and outside. So this building here is blocking off the traffic and the noise, and it's really creating this beautiful, secure realm and environment for the keiki. So in order to do that, we have to compromise and turn the building in a way that's not optimal. Optimal because of its thermal performance. We have here and daylight efficiency of performance. So here we're looking at the east facade, which is facing the garden, but the sun is up there in the morning and shoots deeply into the building, which is why some internal shading devices have been added to the building later on. Also, you get more daylight efficiency from the south rather than the east, so we tried to compensate that by the choice of materiality and color in this room. The walls are clad with birch plywood, and the floor is an orange-colored linoleum. So both of them bounce off their bright and happy colors, which then, even though the sun might not be out, which there are many of these days around the year in northern Germany here, you always have the feeling of a sunny space. So the concept of this room here is a sunroom, is an airy, spacious room that helps to have the keiki grow up in a natural, healthy environment. This room here has a special feature that, to show you that, we're going to move on to that space. This building was built just before code changed, which from there on required every space in the kindergarten to be handicap accessible. At that time, that wasn't the case, so we decided to give the children the experience of height. So there are these stairs they can walk up and get up to a space, get up to a hallway, a catwalk that actually they can even look down into the street. We've been told by the kindergartners here and Ms. Heinemann that this is an incredible experience, that, as you will see, the two next kindergartens we're going to show you don't have anymore, because if you want to do 2 levels, you can only do that with an elevator. For that, the public funding isn't sufficient. So we have a real dilemma as far as whom we serve best at what time here. Whenever they have a handicapped person here, the principle of social solidarity kicks into place, and the non-handicapped and the kindergartners, of course, help the children upstairs. And what's so special and unique about this space, we talk about, which we call the bird's nest, we're going to see if we go upstairs. So we're now in the bird's nest. So the bird nest is actually suspended with a steel cable that's in the corner of this glass here from the main steel structure, and is hanging freely without a column in the main living room. And so whenever a child is upset and wants to be on her or his own, they can go upstairs and hide here, yet having a spectacular visual connectivity to the other ones, which we probably better get it closer with a camera to show you. So I'm now here simulating for you the view that little bird in the bird's nest has when watching down on its peers, and this here at the tip of my finger is that steel cable here that the whole box is suspended from the steel structure. So again, the other kindergartens don't have that anymore, so that's something I guess that should be critically assessed as far as the societal values of codes and regulations. So this panoramic view here gives you an idea of what was the most important space of the building, which is the garden. So maybe a little surprising for us architects, it's not an indoor space, it's an outdoor place that matters the most. And why is that? Because this here tries to reconnect the children to nature. These trees here have been rather little when they were planted. They're now matured. This place here tries to re-engage children with nature. They should get their hands dirty, climb up a tree, fall off a tree, pick an apple, eat an apple, all of these things. And with that, it's sort of facing a global problem and challenge, which is nature deficit disorder and obesity that we have all over the world in civilized cultures, and as well in Hawaii. So the building in this case actually is just the background. It's sort of the stage for this human activity and event. And as we talked, the front facade is more a natural landscape element. So this facade here is literally and figuratively the mirror for these keiki events. How Ms. Heinemann, as the director of this facility, evaluates all that we have just seen, we're going to find out when we now walk back to our office and revisit her. Okay. Ja.
Also wir haben einen sehr großen Spielflur, der ist wie eine Spielstraße konzipiert, könnte man sagen. Das ist wunderbar, weil die Kinder, wenn sie hier in den beengten Wohnverhältnissen im Baugebiet wohnen, hier einen Ersatz dafür haben, dass man heute nicht mehr aufgrund der Verkehrssituation auf der Straße spielen kann. Das ist wunderbar, dass wir den Kindern hier diese Weitläufigkeit im Raum anbieten können. Und die Gruppenräume nicht so sehr groß sind für 25 Kinder, ist es auch sehr schön, dass wir auf dem Flur verschiedene Spielecken anbieten, eine Leseecke, eine Bauecke und eine Rollenspielecke, sodass die Kinder die auch nutzen können. Wird auch sehr gut genutzt von den Kindern. Macht ihnen Freude, diesen großen Raum als Spielraum wahrzunehmen.
So you explain that also the concept of the street, how we call it, which we dedicated the hallway, this function, which usually is just a circulation space that people can pass each other and get from one room to the next, but we made it wider, and you say you appreciate that because here in the neighborhood, due to traffic and possible accidents and people being afraid, children don't have the ability anymore to play on the streets as they used to. So you kind of give it back to them, this kind of quality of playing on the streets, you give it back to them in your building. You say for that you're happy that the hallway is wide enough so you can have certain zones and certain niches that you theme, so you have a diversity of activities in that hallway. So you appreciate that.
Von dem Flur gehen die Türen zu den einzelnen Gruppen ab. Wir betreuen insgesamt 110 Kinder und ihre Familie im Alter von 1,5 Jahren bis 10. Unsere kleinste Gruppe ist wie in einer Einliegerwohnung untergebracht. Das ist sehr schön, weil wenn die Tür geschlossen ist, haben die da einen Raum, der alles hat, was sie brauchen, in Ruhe. Und wenn sie die Tür öffnen, dann können sie teilnehmen an dem großen Spielen der anderen Kinder.
So you explain that the building is zoned. It starts at the very beginning with the little ones, they're 1.5 years old, the toddlers, and it goes to the very old, relatively speaking, they're 10 years, and there's also a youth care facility sort of at the other end of it. So the building is nicely zoned, and the little ones have their sort of private unit, which is closed off with a wall and a door, a glass door. So you can close that off and have intimacy, and it's quiet when they need to take their nap. But once your colleagues decide to integrate, then they open the door and they're part of the bigger family and the bigger house. So you say that's an advantage of the concept.
Auch vom Flur gehen die Türen in die verschiedenen Gruppenräume. Immer gegenüber liegt ein Waschraum für die Kinder, wo die dann halt Handtücher und Zahnbürsten zum Zähneputzen haben. Und die Gruppenräume sind auch mit Emporen ausgestattet, sodass der Spielraum etwas differenziert ist, auch mit anderen Ausweichmöglichkeiten, die auch entsprechend gestaltet werden und wurden von dem pädagogischen Personal.
So explain that the building is also zoned the other way, so you have sort of a servant space, sort of a spine along the street facade wall where basically the kitchen and the restrooms are located. And then on the other side is where the living rooms are. And this building here has something special. We should probably mention later that that wouldn't be possible like that anymore because code has changed, but you have a split level or two level play areas. You have the main space and then there's a little suspended, I always call it the nest, which gives the children a space for retreat. And so when they're like, you know, fed up, they can go up there and be by themselves, and there's a little window they can look down. So you say that's a quality that you have multi-level experience in this building here. Und dann sollten wir vielleicht ruhig der Kritik halber sagen, eben nachdem die Richtlinie sich geändert hat, kann man das nur noch mit Aufzug und den Aufzug kann man ja nicht bezahlen. Ne? Nee, das nicht bei Ihnen.
Noch nicht keine Brandschutzbegehung gehabt.
Nee, meine ich bei Ihnen. Sie haben noch den...
Es ist nur ein Belüftungsfaktor schwierig mit dem Raum, der über diesen beiden Gruppen ist, der so geschlossen ist. Hier oben die Empore wunderbar, die sind froh, dass sie die haben, aber die sind unglücklich mit diesem Doppelraum. Der ist einfach... Irgendwie findet er kein Konzept und die Belüftung ist ganz schlecht. Und was die Kinder da am liebsten drin machen, ist toben, aber dann trampeln sie der unteren Etage dermaßen auf den Kopf rum, weil das ja logisch nicht so Lärm ist. Und das geht gar nicht. Und da hat sich noch nicht wirklich dauerhaft ein Konzept gefunden, was wirklich so umsetzbar war für die Gruppen.
So for the audience, it's interesting when they see the other kindergartens later that this building here is actually before the city started to implement the passive houses, and the one in Marienwerder, the Eco-Witbox, how we call it, is the first passive house. So this here is a totally different concept as far as thermal comfort. This building is naturally ventilated. And that has its challenges, as you explained, because there are certain rooms that are trapped, the ones that are just sort of praised, you know, which are the ones above. The ventilation in them is kind of critical because they don't have as many openings. And that's in conflict with what the kids like to do there, is being very, very active. Also, acoustically, that's a challenge. So that's, I think, is great about us talking, as we have always been doing it, that we've been constructively critical, and you always told me, I want to tell you what doesn't work, so the next time you design, you don't make these mistakes, you make others, but not these again. Also dieses, was ich immer schon geschätzt habe, diese konstruktive Kritik. Ja, vielleicht zu den Materialitäten.
Ja, gerne würde ich aber auch noch was zu der Halle sagen. Das finde ich eine gute Konzeption, die Halle gegenüber den Eingang zu legen und auch mit dieser Türöffnung, weil wir die sehr, sehr gut nutzen können, auch bei Veranstaltungen, wenn hier die Familien wirklich zusammenkommen, zu größeren Festveranstaltungen. Oder wenn wir ein Musical vorführen mit unserer Musiklehrerin, dann brauchen wir mal viel Platz für Publikum und das bietet diese Möglichkeit. Und deswegen schätzen wir sehr diesen Übergang vom Eingang offen in die Halle hinein, wo wir da sehr viel möglich machen können.
So you're acknowledging a space that's called the multifunctional room. It's a program part, but it's up to the architect and the user where they want to locate it. And you specifically praise and acknowledge its positioning here in combination with the entrance. It has a harmonica wall that you can open and close, and when you open that, it becomes a bigger space. So when you have special events, Christmas parties and stuff like that, you can have a bigger space. And we've just been in this space, and you introduced the main fans of the space to me. You say, these are the kids that like it the most, and they were the older ones. And one of them made the best compliment. He basically said, "This is the greatest gym in the world," or something. He said, so it's well accepted. And we maybe vielleicht auch die Faltwand noch mal kurz erklären in ihrer Ausgestellungen, was Ihnen dabei hilft oder nicht mit den Seeschlitzen? Ich weiß nicht, ob sich das
Nee,
bewährt hat.
das hat sie nicht so bewährt. Das ist immer mal wieder zugeklebt worden, aber dann mal wieder abmontiert worden. Eigentlich ist es manchmal auch eine Ablenkung, wenn da drin was passiert, was für außen eigentlich abgeschottet ist, dann stehen auch Stören, die geben, sagen wir mal, Entspannung. Es gibt auch Kolleginnen, die gerne Entspannung machen, da jetzt so viel Platz hat, machen kann man hinlegen. Das ist dann aber eben was Ruhiges, wo Störung nicht so gewünscht ist. Und wenn dann Kinder immer gucken und die anderen abgelenkt sind, dann ist es nicht unbedingt so günstig. Andererseits sieht es natürlich optisch besser aus, weil es aufgelockerter ist. Also da weiß man nicht, wem man so dient, mit dem, was man da...
No, that's a great, I think that's just great, because we designed that harmonica wall with a pretty significant effort and made the manufacturer insert little glass stripes, so that there is actually a visual connectivity between once we're in and out. And you say it's a great idea, however in practice it caused not insignificant distractions, first of all. Some of your colleagues use it as a relaxation room, and then sort of there's distraction. So it's interesting between theory and practice and well-meaning and reality. And that's what this POE is important, because that gets the message out. Colleagues can see that and can, you know, upfront the discussion rather than at the end of it where it's kind of too late. Ja, dann...
Genau, dann muss ich sagen, dass die Fußböden in gutem Sinne von dem Architekten mit hochwertigen Materialien ausgestattet wurden, aber diese hochwertigen Materialien letztlich in der Betriebsführung, weil dann auch nur ein gewisses Geldbudget für Putzfirmen zur Verfügung steht, nicht so gepflegt werden wurden können, wie das eigentlich nötig wäre. Und das hat dazu geführt, dass das Material überstrapaziert wurde, mit falschen Pflegemitteln behandelt wurde und eben eingebüßt hat an dem, was es ursprünglich als Qualität bieten sollte.
So you say on the same note, since we're on the critical part, you said the floor materials, they were well chosen by the architect as far as atmospherical and material, not outgassing. It's sort of a rubber, Naturkautschuk, so it's kind of a natural rubber material. But you said as far as the wear and tear, which is, there's probably no building type in the world that's tougher on the materials than a kindergarten, because the children come in with their dirty boots, and in the winter there's gravel and all that stuff, so it's really hard to clean. So the audience will see, but the street, because we said it's a street, and the street is usually asphalt, so we choose a darker, not to say black one. And in the living rooms, actually, to make up for orientation being east as opposed to south, for daylight efficiency, we used a rather sunny color, which is an orange, sort of to simulate sunlight, even though there might not be the sun out there. And you say again, there's this kind of, you know, balancing between the idea and the practicality of materiality. Ja, vielleicht noch ein ganz bisschen zur Materialität. So.
Ja, also besonders schätze ich die Holzverkleidung an den Wänden. Die hat eine warme Atmosphäre, also bringt eine warme Atmosphäre und lässt sich wunderbar ästhetisch gestalten. Und das ist etwas, und wenig Renovierungsbedarf im Vergleich zu Wänden, die man wieder immer mit neuer Farbe bestreichen muss, ist das eigentlich wunderbar pflegeleicht und sehr, sehr von der Atmosphäre warm und sehr also viele Gestaltmöglichkeiten, und das ist etwas, was ich sehr schätze vom Material an der ganzen Ausstattung, sowohl im Flurbereich als auch Halle und Gruppenbereich.
So you say again, since we're now checking the materials here, you say what you appreciate very much is the birch plywood cladding on the walls, and whereas usually kindergartens per code have 3 feet, a meter wood, and then there's usually plywood, gypsum board or something softer, which doesn't age very well. And you also, which I always, pleased me from the very beginning, that you said you also have an aesthetical educational approach here, that you say, children should also be educated about aesthetics, and you just say the value of these wood panels is something rich and valuable that sends a message to the children that's something to consider. So at the same time, they're very well serviceable. You can wash them, so they're durable, and they're warm and bright. So again, they kind of enhance the daylight efficiency in the living rooms together with the floor materials and what we talked about.
Mhm. Was auch nochmal bemerkenswert ist, ist die sehr große Verglasung, sage ich mal, also das Glas. Das ist auch etwas zweischneidig, weil einerseits ist es wunderbar, die Räume hell zu haben, dass das Tageslicht reinkommt, besonders auch auf dem Flur. Viele Familien, die sich das Haus angucken, wenn sie ihr Kind hier gerne anmelden wollen, sind begeistert von der Helligkeit, von der Ausstrahlung dieser Räume. Wir auch, weil wir in Norddeutschland meistens trübe Himmel haben. Aber wenn wir dann mal warmes Sommerwetter haben, dann dreht dieser Vorteil schnell um und es wird hier es findet trotz der Berechnungen, wie der Architekt mir das gesagt hat, in der Praxis dann doch eine ganz starke Wärmeentwicklung statt, die manchmal dann auch für uns sehr, sehr anstrengend wird in der Nutzung dieser Wetterphasen.
It's also a very honest and very, very good point that I always talk to my students when they confuse daylight and sunlight, actually. And the sun is the source of light, but also the source of heat. And you say where Germany, northern Germany, has a lot of overcast days where the lots of light is very welcome. In the summer days where the sun is a problem because it overheats. And that has to do, my additional comment is that with the choice of positioning the building the way it is to basically protect the garden space, that's why they're facing east. And so to shade something to the east as in a mechanical way is very tough because the sun comes in so low and shoots right into the building. So you say again, sort of a conflict between one thing is desirable and the other one isn't, so how does architecture basically harmonize that? So that's, you said, has been a challenge and will be an ongoing challenge. So, ja, vielleicht dann zum Garten, dann abschließen.
Also wir freuen uns, dass wir so ein großes Spielgelände für die Kinder haben, sehr naturnahes Spielgelände mit einer Sandlandschaft, die auch mit Feldsteinen durchbrochen ist und viel alten Baumbestand und einigen haben wir auch dazu gepflanzt, weil sich das einfach anbietet, wenn die Kinder Naturschatten haben und auch verschiedene Naturerfahrungen mit den Bäumen und mit der Landschaft machen können. Auch Obstbäume, die auf dem Gelände stehen, sind natürlich immer von großer Begehrlichkeit, wenn Erntezeit ist und wir verarbeiten das Obst dann auch. Und das ist für die Kinder, die ja oft nur eine Sekundärerfahrung aus dem Fernsehen haben, mit solchen Naturerfahrungen wunderbar, dass sie das hier gleich hinterm Haus haben und auch nutzen können.
So explain, as I started to explain when I, started the show today, I told the audience that we first of all analyzed the term kindergarten. So it's not an enclosed space that we consider maybe by the terminology the most appropriate space for children, but the garden and open space. So this is your most favorite space as well, is the one that we provided by having the building protect the garden basically and making it an oasis that you made out of it with mature trees that have been existing that we protected over the construction, and you added some. And you turn it into a very natural experiential space that you say children need in these days where in their other environments they're more artificially exposed to things that are not that sensual. So this kind of direct exposure to all the senses was very important for you, and that's probably one of the most successful things of the building is the garden, kindergarten. So, yes, with that, thank you very much. You also told me before that some of your potential clients, so to speak, so the parents, came to you and were surprised how young the building looks.
Yes.
Because it's actually getting old, relatively speaking. But that was a good compliment, and I think it's nice to share with the audience. So again, a great pleasure to see you again after all these years and continue the constructively critical POE discussion, which is wonderful. So hope to see you again next time sooner than this time, so we won't let that much time pass by. So thank you very much again.
Yeah.